dude.
Happy Friday, beautiful Friday over here. Now I'm so jazzed to start it off with you. It's beautiful morning, nice and sunshiny. You can see the sun streaming in here, and I got a new ring light. So normally I'm really backlit. It doesn't look that good, but this is a big ring light in it. I can control. I can make it warmer, cooler, brighter, softer. It's really good, really good. So, and see my new headphones.
Yeah, new headphones too.
Yeah. First time
jealous.
in 4.5 years that I sent you the brand because I did a lot of research, and they're just the same. I mean, if they're good, they're good.
They look cool. Yeah.
Well, that's very important.
It's super important.
I wanted a smaller, like really stealthy kind, but this is like the best I could do.
All right. I like it.
Yeah, I like them a lot. And you've been having audio difficulties, so our apologies, folks. Merle is going to be using the computer speakers today, and
yeah, I hate that.
I do too. I do too. We take a lot of pride in our quality, and so that's unfortunate. But man, we got a really good show for you. I'm just going to run down a couple of things I want to talk about, and then we'll back up. But there's a story about these conjoined twins that just got married to a guy, and look forward to sharing that with you. I just have a lot of questions.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll get back.
I remember those people on the Guinness Book of World Records.
Oh, okay, because these twins, conjoined twins, actually had a reality show 10 years ago, as I read.
Oh my gosh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So, but they had been very private since.
Good TV right there.
Right. So then there's also want to talk about RFK's mom, RFK Jr.'s mom. Have you read the stories?
No.
Well, I have two opposing stories. They're not really opposing, but they're very interesting. The one is from RFK Jr. himself, and he was very.
His mom is Ethel. That's right.
Yeah, and so RFK Jr. is pretty politically correct about how he goes through his life, and he takes all responsibility for his own behavior. And then there's another biography on him and his family from a different guy, a journalist who has really good credentials. We'll go into that later, but scathing about his mother, just a raving lunatic.
Never heard that before.
Then there's the P. Diddy FBI raid. That's huge. And Sam Bankman-Fried just got sentenced to 25 years.
Yeah.
And $11 billion in crypto fraud. Ooh, he's going to pay $11 billion. But a couple things I want to start off with. For one, I do want to give a shout out to my renters who are leaving this Sunday after 3 or 4 months with me. A fantastic, yeah, and I'm in this role. I got my pricing right, where I'm just doing these monthlies several months at a time, which is great because I went through like 2 years after COVID of doing like 5 days. So I'm over there turning it over all the time. So I'm out of that pattern. And they wanted to stay longer, but I have someone else booked for coming in till July in a couple of weeks. I'm actually going to be over there for 2 weeks. I blocked it off and I rented a boom lift. I have to paint the peaks of my house on both sides. So that's what I'm going to be doing. But I wanted to say about these guys, I don't want to give their names. I didn't ask permission to. But they just a nice young couple. They're traveling nurses, and and so they did a stint here in Cleveland for a while, and they wanted to extend it. And they love my place. They've said it over and over again. They hate to leave. And I was over there a couple months ago. They asked me to put up some curtains on the back sliding glass door. Yeah, I was happy to. So I went and purchased them, came over and said, hey, I'm going to need a couple hours to put these up. Now, they have 2 huskies, and I first kind of met them in the one and only snowfall that we had a few months ago, and I had
one and only.
Yeah, again, same as last year.
Wow.
And when we get these snowfalls, my snowblower doesn't start. It starts every other time. So I had to shovel.
That's the way.
58 years old. I had to shovel both the driveways myself. But I saw they weren't home, and I saw their two huskies in that sliding glass door staring at me the whole time and everything. And they're just beautiful dogs. I think they're the most beautiful dogs ever. So when I came over a couple weeks later to put those blinds up, Alex, I'll just say his name. He introduced me to the two dogs, Vera and Zero, and they're both rescues. If I might screw it up a little bit, but I think they were from Russia. And so rescues from there. And Zero has basically PTSD from being abused as a puppy. And yeah, but Vera, super outgoing. She just wanted to lick me the whole time. She wanted me to pet her the whole time. And so it took me forever to put up those blinds because I was just, with her and talking to Alex the whole time. Like he and I couldn't stop talking. He and his girlfriend are approximately 28 years old, traveling nurses. That's how they met. And they're a super tight relationship and super tight with their dogs. They're beautiful people. And I was talking with Lisa about that yesterday morning about how we always complain about I don't know if they're Gen Z or millennials. They're in there somewhere. And we complain about the younger people. And there's a lot of reason to, but there's also a lot of reason to have so much hope. Because these two, like so many others, are absolutely great people. Lights around everybody's home.
I love to hear that. Love to hear
Alex and I could not stop talking about everything. Great. Yeah. But I wanted to say one thing that during their stay here. So a few weeks back, they went back home to Maryland. I didn't even know they did until they texted me and said, hey, we got in a bad accident, totaled the car on the way home. We hit some black ice. We're all okay. Geez. But Vera got very hurt. The one husky, the one that was loving me on me so much.
I gotcha.
A week later, they texted me and she passed away. At 4:30 in the morning. And they just the other day shared this picture of Vera with me, which is super sweet. And it just breaks my heart. So here she is being very sick. Do you see it?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So she's just being very silly. And that really captures her personality. Mm-hmm. And they were so heartbroken. And I mean, of course, for sure, I'm heartbroken. And I think about Zero, the dog with PTSD. He really was mentored by Vera, and now he's on his own. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyways, they were very thankful. I shared my own feelings about how I've coped with dogs passing and stuff. And they were really, really appreciative. They're just super people. I hate to see them go. They're leaving on Sunday. And I really am going to miss them. I hope our paths cross again. And I just wanted to share that about Vera. Memorialize her a little bit. She really deserved it. It's just so sad that happened.
What a sad thing. Gosh, and especially on a Good Friday. It's Good Friday today. So
yeah, she passed about 2 weeks ago. I just wanted
that's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that. It is tough losing a pet, especially I can't imagine losing a pet like that either.
No.
Just bad car accident and everything.
Well,
my heart goes out to them, but I'm glad that you've made some new friends over there with your tenants and everything. And it is good to understand that there's young people out there that are taking responsibility. And that traveling nursing gig is a pretty good one. They make,
while they're young,
make really good money.
They do make very good money, but also while you're that young, to do that for a while and get to see and experience all these different places, I think what they're doing, I know what they're doing. I talked to Alex, but they're scoping out where they want to set up a permanent residence. And Cleveland's up there. Cost of living's great. They love it here. I hope they come back and stay at my place again for as long as they want.
Well, Cleveland with mild winters is what it sounds like you just had.
Again.
Okay, so let's just go back to that. You said one and only snowfall. Is that right? Only
just like time? Last year. In fact, in 2024, we've had the one, because last winter we had that, they called it the polar vortex. It was Christmas Eve, and we got pummeled, and we made the mistake of going out to Painesville for Christmas, because it got terrifying as we were halfway out there. But it was the only snowfall, so we didn't even have snowfall in 2024 that winter. And this winter is almost exactly the same. Now, I'm going to say what I tell everybody here because everybody's like, oh, yeah, global warming, and this is the best, and this is what it's going to be like. Dude, it's always been like this my whole life. We'll have 3 horrible winters back to back to back, and then 2 mild ones, and then 3 horrible ones. And so I'd expect next winter's probably going to be absolutely horrifying. They're never that predictable, but it's kind of like that. That's kind of what the pattern's like. So I thought you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to say, I remember that, that it would be unpredictable, but I don't remember it ever being like one snowfall though. That seems dramatic.
I shouldn't say one snowfall that was shovelable.
Okay.
You know, we did. Yeah. We had a couple more inches here and there, but it was like, no need to shovel. Okay. With that, I want to roll into some really good news from a recent study from the Cleveland Clinic. In a recent study, researchers found that heart disease risk factors responded quickly to changing eating patterns. So participants in this study intentionally went on a nutrition roller coaster. They followed a heart healthy eating plan for 5 to 6 weeks, then returned to their usual not so healthy diets for 4 weeks, and then followed it with another 4 to 5 weeks of heart healthy eating. After each interval, they had their heart disease risk factors such as blood pressure, cholesterol levels tested. The risk factors.
Wait, are you doing that? Did the balloons disappear?
I was reading this, and out of the corner of my eyes, I just saw some balloons go by.
I mean, that was crazy, Barry. You didn't make that happen?
No, I wasn't even on the screen. I wonder if that's going to show up. Way to go, I wonder if that's going to show up in the recording.
That's for sure. It's going to be in the recording.
Well, I got to see that again.
That was crazy, man.
Yeah.
Well, hooray for heart health. I think that's what the balloons meant.
Yeah. You know what? AI's listening to us. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's going to happen. I think you're absolutely right. So the risk factors were measured and improved when they followed the heart healthy diet and worsened when they had the less nutritious diet. And it only took a few weeks to see these significant changes. So the takeaway,
it was like 3 weeks each.
Yeah, the takeaway is obvious. Your body responds quickly to nourishing foods and the opposite. So if you fall off the wagon of eating well, know that you can hop right back on. During the holidays, you know, we slip a lot, but just know that you can hop right back on this. And if you're, you know, worried about your risk factors, you can, you know, do the Mediterranean diet and like, boom, you'll instantly show major improvements.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, it goes both ways though, too, is that if you've been practicing a healthy lifestyle all along, that can go south within 3 weeks.
Very quickly. Yeah, I know. But you know, the thing is, and I've been up and down a bit throughout my life, but generally I've always eaten pretty good. And you know, it's a habit. It's an addiction. If you go into the bad, sugary, salty food and fast food and all, that's addictive. But if you do go healthy, that gets addictive too. You lose your cravings for the other stuff.
Well, you do, and you start to actually crave the other stuff, and that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah,
but boy, it is amazing how quickly, you know, you go to, if you travel and you get off of your thing, it's so hard to get back on because you do become addicted to these kinds of high sugar, high carbohydrate,
the preservatives and chemicals. They put those in there intentionally to be addictive. Yeah,
they really do, don't they?
Traveling, dude, it's so hard to eat healthy when you're traveling. Very hard.
It is. It really is. I've been doing pretty good. I mean, you know, with the whole Optavia thing that I've been doing, I have those when I travel. I bring my food bars and stuff like that to mitigate my hunger because I'm gonna end up going out to dinner with clients or whatever. So I just use that so that I don't go crazy in between that meal because I'll only have that one meal during the day. And then I'll make it so that I don't, you know, go crazy at dinner or then after dinner. Usually when I travel, I don't I'm pretty good at not gaining any weight now when I travel, but boy, I was having a real hard time
It's
with
so
that
hard.
before.
Well,
It is.
so I mean, you found like the Optavia snacks or what do it. That's your
Yeah,
miracle.
yeah,
That's your
it
go-to.
kills my appetite
That's
so
awesome.
that I don't go crazy. And then even after dinner, my whole thing is I'm very susceptible to after dinner and eating all the wrong things. And
Oh,
traveling, it's once hey, if you have something that makes it so that you don't leave your hotel room and go and get like all those bad things, then
yeah,
it helps. And that's how I've
yeah.
done it. And it definitely works.
Well, I could tell you this, like a couple tricks for at home. I always have mixed nuts and peanuts on hand. To grab a handful of those, it's so satiating. Apples, man, I love apples and pears, but apples really are satiating and they have the crisp snap to them and they quench your thirst. I mean, they're very refreshing and they mitigate your appetite too. But for me, peanuts and mixed nuts are really key. I love Lisa and I just always talk about too. We love a crunch. And that's where you get in trouble. So because you want chips of some kind,
Yes,
you
yeah,
want a
I like the
crunch.
crunch too. I'm the
Yeah.
same way here.
Yeah.
Hey, Barry, I got a couple of things going on over here right now. It's pretty cool. This weekend, the
Can I ask you
uh
something first?
oh
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you because we haven't talked about your Optavia diet for a long time. I just wanted to
Oh, go right
ask
ahead.
you,
Yeah.
are you just maintaining? Are you staying
Yes,
at your weight that you
maintaining. I'm
want to
not
be?
trying to lose any weight.
I
I've
gotta.
been maintaining the same weight for almost a year now. I'm
Wow.
at exactly 200 pounds.
Wow.
So I've stayed at 200 pounds, but I'm going to the gym regularly, so my body is still changing.
Yeah. Right.
I'm replacing. I'm kind of like trading fat for muscle,
But
but I'm
muscle
still
weighs more. So
right. And
you
so
might put a little weight on.
the cool thing is that I had like all of the after I lost because I lost 80 pounds, so I had all this
Wow.
extra stuff around my
Yeah.
waist, and I
Yeah.
thought, well, I guess that's never going to go away. But as I've been building muscle, that's been going away. And
Wow.
so seriously, Barry, I don't what I've been able to do physically, I don't think I've ever been in this kind of physical shape before.
Wow. So what are your workouts like? What do you do?
It's all, it's a mixture of cardio and then lifting. And and I make it, I have a routine, and the routine
Good.
I increase my weights very gradually.
Good.
My
Good.
whole thing has been all about getting in and out without having excruciating pain.
There you go.
When
Perfect.
I first started doing my workouts, it was all about forming a habit. It wasn't about building muscle at all. It was
Sure.
about making sure I go every other day,
And
making
don't
sure
hurt
that I
yourself.
go every other day and get into the habit. And then after a few weeks of that, I started to increase my weights. I purposely made it easy to do to begin,
Good.
almost too easy.
Sure.
Then once I started to get into a routine, I was almost mindlessly doing. I could listen to my podcasts, I could
Yeah.
listen to music.
Yeah.
I've been listening to my Spotify, and there's an AI DJ on there now, which I
Wow.
love. And
Really?
I've had
I don't even
Spotify.
know what you're talking about
Oh, okay. So
because I never listen to
okay,
music.
I'll take a side step here
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
I'm not a huge music person, even though I play guitar and everything,
Hmm.
but I'm very nostalgic. I love the nostalgia of music. Since I've had this Spotify, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I guess, it knows what I like. And it like is amazing how it mixes music and brings back this nostalgic stuff. I've been on the treadmill like crying for joy as I'm listening to, oh, I can't believe I'm hearing this song.
I gotta
It's like
check this out.
bringing the joy of music back for me. It's
That's
really
cool.
pretty cool. Well, anyway, so I'll do that, and I just mindlessly do this, and then I'll gradually increase the weights, and it's really made this tremendous change in my body, and I feel great, and I'm addicted to
You
that now. And speaking of being addicted, I love I don't like the workout so much, but I love the endorphins
Oh
that
yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
definitely get a high off of maybe as I'm doing it, and especially afterwards. I feel like this. I don't
That's
know.
why
I feel fantastic. Is how I feel.
yes, that's why I do it in the morning because I feel so good after for the workday, and I really enjoy that. Now, back to the music thing, I can say in the last week I'll just go on YouTube and look up whatever I want, and sometimes I'll just if I'm walking Charlie and I feel like listening to something, you can find anything on YouTube, and I just listen to it while we're walking. But I was at night instead of watching movies twice now. I one time a few nights ago I got into Def Leppard concert live concert from 1989, like their freaking heyday, and it was so good. Then I would say what's even better. I remember I bought the 2 disc CD set of In Excess. It was called Live Baby Live. Oh my God, so good. Well, I caught the live taping of it, and it was really, really good quality. Michael Hutchinson was such an amazing singer, and that band so talented, and their
I thought they were
chemistry.
great too. Yeah.
Oh,
I
that live concert is mind blowing. Mind blowing.
he reminded me of a more of a modern day at the time, Jim Morrison.
Oh
He
yeah.
kind of
Uh-huh.
had that look about him, and
Hmm.
I
What
thought,
an
wow,
amazing
I
voice.
can't wait to see what this guy does. And then it was over.
Yeah, very, very sad. I would say that I marveled through that concert because of how effortlessly he could sing so perfectly. I mean, just effortlessly.
I'm jealous of people that can
Me too.
sing
Yeah.
really well. Like,
Uh-huh.
God, how they,
Like
what a
that.
gift. What a gift they
Yeah, like listening to him, it was like, oh, anybody could sing that. That's how effortless
have.
it seemed to him as
It
he's
seems like it.
running
Yeah.
across the stage and everything. And it's just coming out,
Yeah.
but Freddie Mercury, same,
Oh,
same.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he was amazing. What he could do with his voice,
Next
and
level.
just he could hit all the different
Do you
octaves, and
do you remember in that movie about Freddie Mercury? Because you and I talked about it before,
yeah, it was such a
but
great movie.
there's the one line he did. So he supposedly said, whether it was real or not, I don't know, but he's like, I just can't miss a note. Like, wow, because dude, he couldn't. And
Yeah.
Steve Perry from Journey. I remember I like to watch Ken Tamplin's YouTube channel. He's a singing instructor and rock god, his whole life and all of that. And he takes apart different singers and he explains what they're good at, what they're
Oh,
not so good at, and all of that. He did Steve Perry and he showed it on his computer. He goes, okay, so here are the notes, and he shows where they are on the computer. Here's Steve Perry, dead freaking on.
I mean, he was amazing.
Yeah,
Steve Perry,
yeah.
but the I don't know what the guy's name is that replaced Steve Perry, but wow.
Like a clone. Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, amazing.
yeah.
He is like a clone. I mean, it almost like you wouldn't know. I wouldn't know that that was not Steve
Right.
Perry.
And
Listen,
the knock on that is because it's karaoke like, because like who's the original, who wrote the stuff? And that
right,
that
right.
means a lot right there. But I don't
Sure.
have any bones about that either way. I'm just happy that Journey's still doing what they love doing. So good for them.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, no kidding.
I wanted to turn that back over to you because you said, "Hey, I got a couple things
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on."
So very exciting here in Gilbert, Arizona. The LPGA tour is happening
What is that?
here.
Is that golf?
That's golf. I'm now I love that you said what is that, because I'm not a big golf person
And you
either.
live on a golf course, basically, right?
Yeah, and I live on a golf course. So this is so cool. So the Seville Golf Course is hosting the LPGA Ford Championship right now, which is in my backyard. It's happening this moment. And it's
Oh,
so flipping exciting, Barry.
you got
I
all
had
TV
no
cameras and
idea.
stuff?
Oh God, TV. It's NBC. It's on NBC right now. And
Wow.
I'm sure my house will show up, and I'm going to go out there and wave to you.
Oh,
Uh,
how
it
cool.
is cool. And there's 144 people that are in the tournament. Women from all over the world are competing right now. I mean, I'm learning all about this because I don't play golf. I've played golf before. I'm terrible at it.
Me too.
And it's just very frustrating for me. So I do respect the magic of being able to do this. I mean, these are very talented athletes here that can do this. I mean, the hand-eye coordination here is amazing. And it's just so neat being able to look out in my backyard and see all this activity. It's been going on since the beginning of the week. And so it'll culminate on Sunday, the big showdown, I guess. And again, I'm a fish out of water because I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's so cool. So Sunday's Easter, and we're hosting a brunch here. So in our backyard, we'll be able to see all the festivities and everything that are going on. And I've got some really high powered binoculars that I got for Christmas a couple of years ago from my brother-in-law, Bob. And now I'm like right in the mix of it. It's so cool.
Do you by chance have like a tripod or something for them?
I do.
Cool. Because when they bounce around, it's so distracting.
Oh, I know. Because there's a leaderboard that I can see right across the way. And I was trying to read it, but it was just like, I can't read it. But it's really cool. The course is beautiful here, the Seville Golf Course. It's a country club. They're saying this is the first time this course has ever hosted the LPGA tour before, or any tour, and so it's a big
too
deal.
Close to the LGBTQXYZ.
I know, right? It is very close, and also I don't know. Do women like to be called ladies now? That's what the L stands for.
Is that right? I thought it was lesbian. I'm pretty sure it's lesbian.
No, it's not lesbian. I'm sorry. It's the Ladies Pro Golf Association.
Oh, I was talking about the other thing.
Oh.
We're having two different conversations.
Can you imagine? Barely stop.
Oh. I got to tell you, I'm still getting over that head cold. Remember last time, 2 weeks ago?
These things seem to hang on forever.
I'm on high-powered antibiotics now. What's AMB something? Now I forget it. Whatever, high-powered antibiotics. It's almost out of me, but you're right, man. It's a hanger-on. So sorry about the occasional coughs and stuff.
Oh, no, that's okay. But man, getting ready for this,
amoxicillin.
Is that it? Amoxicillin. Well, that's a tough one right there.
Yeah.
It's an army of different little equipment, cars, and stuff that they use to beautify this course. But Barry,
it's got to be huge, huh?
It is. It's amazing. I mean, they've got towers that they built, and for the cameras and everything. They built grandstands at different holes. Like I can see the 18th hole from my backyard. So they've got a grandstand over there,
and that's where that lake has to be, right? That you've shown us pictures of. Okay.
Right. That's exactly right. So just across the lake is where the 18th hole is, and I'm on the 16th hole, so I can. They're all coming across, and crowds of people are following the golfers. It's neat, man. Yeah. Anyhow, so so we're gonna have people over on Sunday to check it out on the last day, and very, very neat stuff happening here. So check it out on NBC. It's pick that up on NBC Sports.
So did it just start today?
It started earlier this week, and it's a tournament. So the tournament lasts all week, and it ends on Sunday. So they'll boil it down to the winner on Sunday. They just got off of a tournament last week, so they're all coming in here. They're here now, and it's kind of busy here at Gilbert. I went to my favorite barbecue place last night, and they were all in there. And it was like, get out of my way.
That's funny. You talk about that barbecue. You really like that place.
I just learned that they were voted on Yelp one of the top 25 places to eat in the country. So I don't know how they come up with that. No, places to eat. That's not
restaurant. Wow.
Yeah. And I'm
Wow.
like,
What's your
get out of
favorite
here.
thing? What's your favorite thing
Oh,
there?
they make this brisket that
Oh,
is to die for. I
yeah.
mean, are you kidding? I could slobber on my keyboard right now. It's so tender and it's so juicy. And I love it. I always, whenever I go there, I get more than I can eat so that I have leftovers to last the
Wow.
next day or so.
Dude, there's
Oh, it's so
nothing like good
next time you
brisket.
come out here, we got to do that, man.
Yes. Oh, for
gotta
sure.
have some of this stuff. It is quite a treat.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Where do you want to go? Do you want to? I know you probably got all kinds of politics stuff. Do you want to go into that? You know, I read like the fun stuff. I got all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, we got we there's a lot of things that are going on out there, but the thing that I found very most interesting this week in the news was the bridge in Baltimore going
Oh,
down.
oh God, that's
I'm sure you
tragic.
saw that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it is tragic and unbelievable. Like, how could that happen?
yeah.
I mean, you take a look at the film of that whole thing, and it's pretty cool that they were able to somebody was able to capture that whole thing.
Yeah, it's like everything's on camera today, you know?
Yeah, you're
Um,
right. You're right.
yeah.
But I mean, when I saw Anne Marie told me about this thing when I woke up the other day, and she showed me the video, and I was in shock
It was
when I
awful.
saw how that bridge collapsed. I gotta say, of course, my skepticism is through the roof on this whole thing because it just seemed so unnatural that the whole bridge would come down because of that one
Yeah.
hit.
Yeah, I thought that when I saw it, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I would have thought anything except that would have happened. Like
Right,
part of it
right.
would come down, or
We've and I remember in California a barge hit the bridge in San Francisco, the Bay Bridge, and
mm.
they had to close that down for a little while, but nothing fell there was nothing fell down or anything like
As I
that.
understand it, that particular bridge is built to be earthquake proof. So you got to,
Hmm.
take that into consideration. All of those things that are suspending it and all.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and that Brooklyn, Baltimore bridge look like Legos. I mean,
Well, it did, but you got to figure. I mean, 30,000 vehicles go over that every day.
oh.
It was just inspected last May. It got a satisfactory.
So then, where does your conspiracy skepticism thing come in? What do you think?
Well, here's a couple of things. First off, that when I looked at the video of the ship itself, I thought it was strange that it had chosen to go it had gotten so close to that part of the bridge in the first place before the power went out. That's unusual. I never see big ships getting really that close to
I read
the pylons. Go ahead.
that the engine did something crazy.
It
Around.
did. What happened was that the power went out on that ship a couple of
Uh-huh.
times. You could see the lights going out, but even before the lights go out, Barry, it seemed like it was tracking towards that part of the bridge to begin with, which
Mm.
is unusual for a ship that size. I mean, I'm no expert in this area, but I've seen that ships tend to stay very far away from those parts of the bridge, and they go in between the middle of the bridge, not the side of the bridge, like what we saw
Yeah.
with this huge ship. Secondly, um, the the whole thing on how immediately they came back and said there's no indication that there was a cyber attack and there's no indication that there was a terrorist attack. Well, how do they know that? I mean, why would you announce that immediately without doing an investigation?
I think
That's
people definitely would have went there right away, but rest assured, Pete Buttigieg said that he's going to look into it and hold those responsible accountable. Coming from
here's
Pete Buttigieg, I mean, first of all,
well,
he would have to go into work to do that.
I mean, here's the thing about that statement is that, immediately the next morning, and it's only a few hours after this happened, the president is on telling us that the federal government is going to pay to rebuild the bridge and clean everything up. But when we saw the East Palestine, is it Palestine, Ohio? where the bridge went, where the train went down,
Yes, yes.
the immediate knee-jerk response was, we're going to make that train company pay for this.
Yes, yes.
So now they're trying to pigeonhole this into, this is, see, we told you we've got infrastructure problems. Well, if it's infrastructure problems, like all these train derailments, what's the difference? Why are we the people going to pay for this bridge, and yet the train company had to pay when the train derails in Ohio? Here's another thing.
I can say that the investigation immediately revealed that the train company was cutting a lot of corners to save money, quality control corners. So I think that's
been telling us that our railroads are part of the infrastructure problem. So I just thought that, hey, that the immediate knee-jerk reaction was to go after the train company. And the immediate thing we heard was the train company's cutting corners. What about the shipping company? Is the shipping company cutting corners?
Something went awry.
It seemed like they did something very wrong here. It's the narrative, Barry, that I'm talking about. It's a whole different narrative, but it's the same subject, which is infrastructure. It's the same subject, which is supply chain. And it seems like if I were the enemy of America, I would want to destroy our supply chain. And when you take a look at strategically that bridge going down, it has a major impact on supply chain. We also found out there were hazardous materials on that ship. Wow. And there's a possibility that those hazardous materials are in the water now. So that contaminates a waterway of ours. And then our enemies love to send signals to us, like the World Trade Center going down. Oh, it's the World Trade Center. It's the Pentagon, the center of our power, the center of our finances, right? Well, you know what the name of this bridge is? It's the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Do you know who that is?
Nope.
Most people don't know who that is. And the funny part about it is that I hear it on the news. Oh, Francis Scott Key Bridge goes down, blah, 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 blah. Francis Scott Key wrote our national anthem.
Oh.
So think about that. The land of the free and the home of the brave is what he wrote. And wouldn't our enemies love to destroy the land of the free and the home of the brave? And wouldn't it be symbolic to take down the Francis Scott Key Bridge? I just think it's very, very interesting when we think about what just happened right there. And the fact is now we're on the hook for billions of dollars of cleanup when it could have been the negligence of a foreign company. It's a company that's owned out of Singapore. We don't know what the deal is, but it seems like another one of these things. And, here's the other thing, Barry, is that over the last few years, we've been seeing a lot of strange things. Like I mentioned the train crashes. Well, there's been many train crashes that seems like an escalation, but also, what about all of these other areas where our food supply has been impacted?
All the fires at farms.
Large cow pastures and chicken farms have been, like you said, catching fire, and then all the chickens burn up and all the cows burn up. And this is like every other week you're hearing about this.
How does that happen?
So, yeah, we never heard anything like this before. So I was talking to a colleague of mine, and we were debating this, and he was telling me that, well, we have been hearing this whole thing about supply chain, and we haven't been doing the repairs, and these things are blowing up as a result of that whole thing. And I had to admit that I don't know if he's right or not, or if I'm right. I don't know the answer. All I can say, and this is what I left with him, was it just seems like it's too much of a coincidence for all of these things to happen at the same time. It's sort of like what I'm hearing you say is it's sort of like when your car warranty runs out. That's when everything breaks down, right?
Right.
And he said, yeah. And I said, don't you ever think that it's by design that all your stuff breaks down as soon as the warranty comes out? Because I want you to buy a new car. That's the whole thing. So could this also be by design that this is all happening? Look at the money grab that our federal government is doing right now, and
Right.
all the money that they're just willy-nilly printing out to devalue our dollar, which is devaluing all of our savings accounts, all of our 401k accounts. If we're looking at retiring, that makes it much more difficult to make that happen. And so that's where I'm coming from. I don't know if that's what it is, but when I see the film of it, something in here is telling me that that's not right.
Well, I certainly understand your skepticism with that. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you're right. I guess that's all I could say about that.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if it's just a feeling that I have. I have nothing to prove what I'm saying. But when you take a look, I'm going to move to the next subject. When you take a look at what's happening in our country right now, Barry, it seems like, and we've been saying this for a while, that there's a force here that is purposely trying to bring down our American way. And one
For
of
sure.
those things that we're seeing is happening at the border in conjunction with these so-called squatter rights.
Oh
And
God,
have you
yes,
been
yes.
seeing this, Barry?
Yeah. And I'm just going to say to you right there that I definitely believe that the dark powers that reside in our government, you could call it deep state. Lisa and I had a very deep discussion about that about a week or so ago. She's like, oh, let me finish that thought first. I believe that the deep state in this whole new world order, these people look at China and say, now that's what you do with capitalism. Control it and run the world that way. And you can do whatever you want. That's what they want to make America into. China.
Well, yeah, and that's not really capitalism any longer. That's
Faux
not how.
capitalism. Yeah.
Yeah, this is um, capitalism that you cheat on,
Yes,
because
yes.
what you're doing with your government is you're there's a scale of equality with capitalism, but when the government puts the thumb down on one part of the scale,
Yeah.
it's not capitalism anymore, it's fascism. And
It is. It
that's what
is.
that's what we're really seeing. And a lot of people, my thought is this: I feel like the one world government elites are using China to do sort of like a battering ram for the rest of the world. And so I agree with what you're saying, is they're looking at this and going, now that's what you do with
Yes, for
capitalism.
sure.
You destroy it this way, and you make people believe that this is the free market and this is
Correct.
capitalism.
Yeah, for
And it's a
sure.
lie. It's not that at all.
So there's two things there. You wanted to talk about the squatters thing, and there's a lot. I mean, that's infuriating. And
It
then
is.
also, I do at least at some point want to try to have this part of our ongoing discussion being trying to identify who this deep state and new world order truly is. But I think about it in my head like an FBI chart, the flow chart, and it
Yes.
would be humongous.
Oh, it would be a very complicated web, but
Very
you
complicated.
can go online and see the speculation on these, and it is a big web of people, but it does make sense because they've really done a good job of making it into a pyramid, so you can see the
Yes.
different levels all the way
Yes.
up to the top. But you look at the top, and it's really it's these hedge funds is the vehicle that the one worlders are using to
Mm.
really enslave the rest of the world into their ideology and into their agenda. And we're seeing it all over the place.
And look how
DEI is a
I was
big
just going to say
part
that.
of
Huge.
how they're able to accomplish this.
And they're
But Barry, you had
crushing companies with DEI. They're forcing them to crush themselves. And I forget who was talking about. Well, I can say that yesterday, I think it was, I saw a 7 or 8 minute video, an interview with Eric Weinstein, Brett Weinstein's brother.
oh
God,
yeah,
I just think what a dinner with these guys. We like a family dinner, what that would be like, just the brain power in that room.
I know. Or family arguments.
Oh God, a family argument. I couldn't even understand what would be
Yeah, what are you
said there.
saying?
But he was saying how DEI must be eradicated immediately, and what it's done to Harvard. And I think he actually teaches at Harvard. I think that's where he's a professor. But he says you wouldn't believe the amount of great things that are still going on there. But do know that obviously it's been infiltrated with DEI, and we're seeing how other companies are being crushing themselves with it, how they're being mandated. Wasn't it funny that the day that Dylan Mulvaney thing and Bud Light came out, that day, the moment I read that, I was like, they're trying to pin this on this 40-year-old woman? Are you kidding me? And
I know, right? Like
she was the
woman. Yeah, she did this. Oh, she screwed up America.
Well, somebody explained how literally the chairmen of the boards will get huge bonuses for making sure this kind of thing gets executed.
Absolutely, they are, because you have the Human Rights Commission. The Human Rights Commission is interesting, and I love the acronym HRC. Which also stands for Hillary Clinton. The Human Rights Commission is the one that actually gives the credit rating to companies for BlackRock for if they're following the DEI.
My understanding is that the credentials of this, the ratings of this, can change overnight. The qualifications.
And that actually, this is on top of that, Barry. Which is that's so crazy what you just said, because it's like these people are like, well, it's this way now. No, now it's that way.
Yes,
and they got their head spinning like this,
right?
Because they keep changing up the rules for DEI. But the fact is that all of these corporations survive off of their credit rating, so that they're able to secure loans from places
hedge
like
funds.
BlackRock.
Yes.
Okay. So the fact is that with this credit rating, the HRC credit rating, they can make it more expensive or less expensive for a company to do business.
You know what that is?
We're talking about their R&D. We're talking about their advertising. We're talking about their sales force. We're talking about everything. And so they've got these companies right where they want them. With this DEI, it's how they control these companies. Go ahead, Barry.
Oh, I was just going to say, this is like the social credit score for companies.
It is. It's the social
coming to us soon.
For companies coming directly to us.
Look at the insanity.
This is why we have to. This is an attack on our infrastructure. That's what this is. We have an attack on our infrastructure. These are our companies. You see what they did with Budweiser. And here's the other thing, Barry. As an American, we vote with our dollars here, right? So what do? We can't buy we can't buy Bud Light anymore. So what did they do? Budweiser lost billions of dollars over. Okay, so we all feel like, okay, we showed them, right? But did we fall right into the globalist trap right there by destroying part of our infrastructure ourselves? It seems like they want us to commit national suicide. How do we commit national suicide? Well, here in America, the thing that is our biggest defense is our economy. If our economy goes down, we can't afford to be the great defensive nation that we are. And so
our economy
what the attack is, go after the economy. Now we can't afford to do anything. And
we're on the precipice. If we make it to this election in November, it'll be a miracle.
So here we have Planet Fitness, which is where I go to the gym. And I love Planet Fitness. I love the no knucklehead thing, no judgment thing, but I don't love the fact that they're letting a man go into a woman's locker room and shave. I don't like that. So knee-jerk reaction, I should leave Planet Fitness and go someplace else. But is that what they want me to do? And also you got to look at, like, Planet Fitness is one of the most affordable gyms I've ever
Oh,
gone to.
yes.
And
Yes.
so now what does this mean? Is this an attack on my own health, my own preventative health care that I'm doing? Take a look at all the things that happened over
Interesting.
COVID. Well, don't go outside, don't take vitamin D, and certainly don't take vitamin C. Ivermectin is
Don't
bad
go
for
to the
you.
beach.
So it might cure cancer. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like all the things that we thought were good for us, they suddenly told us that were bad for us. Oh,
Right.
and then the vaccination has a higher level of you'll have a higher level of immunity than natural immunity. We never heard that before. It was just everything turned
Yeah.
upside down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You go back to the. I'm almost like got to be counterintuitive now about what's going on, because
That's interesting.
the fact is they want to bring down our economy, and
And still
DEI
doing it.
is a weapon against our economy. So when we have these feelings of should we just boycott, well, it seems to be an advantage for the globalists to eliminate a lot of these excess companies and only be able to provide a couple of companies so that they can completely control it. I look at the movie Idiocracy, right?
Doesn't
And
everybody?
we're living in these times right now, but
Aren't we?
remember in the movie how Brondo takes over everything. You had like the pyramid in the movie with all these different companies, but in the end, Brondo takes over everything. And
I
Carl's
don't
Jr.
remember the movie that well. Only the
Okay, so
ridiculousness of it.
there was two companies that basically take over. It was ridiculous, but here's my point: is that out of the ridiculous, you get reality.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
in the future, which is where Idiocracy takes place, they have consolidated power into just a few companies.
Like
It
today.
was Costco. Welcome to Costco. I love you. It was Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. thinks you're a bad mother and is going to take your children away. And then there was Brondo. You don't drink toilet water, drink Brondo. They were watering their lawns with Brondo. It's like it was killing all the grass. They couldn't figure out why it was happening. And they told the guy from the past that traveled into the future is like, you got to put water on the grass, not Brondo. Like toilet water. We live in this day right
We
now,
do.
which is
We
so
do.
crazy. But back to my point was, in the movie, they consolidate the power into these three companies, and we're seeing a similar thing that's happening here, where it's like, let's eliminate these. It's easier for the globalists to control a few companies and load up all of their control into those
Man,
companies.
wasn't that COVID just killing all the independently owned businesses? And oh, but it's okay to go to Walmart and Target, you know?
Yes, yes.
It
And
just built them up, man.
think about this too, Barry, is that independent thought was something that seemed to also be on the chopping block, because you had, for instance, all the people in the military that were forced to take the vaccination, and then they got rid of all of the people that the conscientious thinkers that said, well, I don't want to do that to my body. Boom, you're out.
Right.
Okay. They did that in the hospitals as well. They did that in a lot of different places, so that now if something like that were to come along, you've got the yes people that are in those organizations. Much easier to control those people without the dissenters. And
Mm.
so it does look like a lot of things are being controlled right now. And these hedge funds seem to be what's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Now, here's something in the news right now is that it seems like our states here in this country are finally starting to get a clue that BlackRock is trying to kill them. Now, here's what's interesting about that, and I'll give you what I'm saying in the article, is that the states are where we get our rights from, not the federal government. The federal government is, and this goes all the way back to our founders, is it's important to have state and local government, and have the center of power really in your local government first, then state, then federal. That's how it's supposed to work. But they're trying to turn it upside down, and that's
Yeah.
why we fought a Revolutionary War, by the way. So these states are where we can really fight back. And here's a positive thing that I see. BlackRock given cease and desist warning by Mississippi over ESG investment approach. So it alleges that BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, noted for its commitments to advance ESG standards, has been and is making, quote, untrue statements of material fact, as well as omitting material facts to make its statements not misleading to Mississippians about its investment services, especially its involvement in pushing ESG factors on portfolio companies. The cease and desist also states that many of BlackRock's acts, practices, and courses of business operate or would operate as a fraud or deceit upon investors and potential investors in Mississippi. So what this is doing, and these states have like their pensions tied up where they're state employees in these hedge funds. And what they're doing, these hedge funds are investing in ESG rich ideas that don't.
By the way, that's
off.
environmental social governance. That's
right.
Like DEI, basically.
And they don't pay off. And they just don't pay off at all. So these states are like, wait a second, this is actually killing the power of the states, and they're fighting back. It looks like we've got several of these states. So hold on. It looks like I just lost that article for some reason. Here we go. So Mississippi is one of the states, but there are several states now that are going after this. I can't find it, but yeah, it's not just Mississippi. It's other states that are going after this as well, which is, I think, very interesting. Oh, so let's go back to Baltimore again, because we're talking about ESG and Baltimore. So it didn't take long after the bridge went down, according to MSNBC and the mayor of Baltimore, that this actually was all about racism, Barry.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry to
how did they shoehorn?
I'm sorry, I had all these conspiracy theories about what happened, but really Joy Reid said it all straight on the show when she brought the mayor of Baltimore in, and it's racism. Here's the deal. If you see this Baltimore mayor, I can't even believe it, Barry. The guy looks like he might be 30 years old. He's a young black man. And I had the link and everything to this. I was going to play it, but I had some computer problems here. But she goes on to say, hey, do you want to address the tomfoolery that's tomfoolery? Who says that? Tomfoolery that's going on here, where people are mad because you have the gall to be the mayor of Baltimore being black. And that's how that started off. And he's sitting there and he's wearing a hoodie. Okay.
Really?
Yes. And he's saying that, well, the Republicans are saying that the reason the bridge fell down is because of ESG, and that you've got all of these foreigners that are over here working on the bridge and maintaining the bridge, and you got these foreigners that are running the boats and everything. Well, okay, when they say ESG, why not just call it exactly what it is? It's the N-word. And that's what you all are calling us. You're calling us the N-word. And people, he says that, white America is afraid of young black men like me. And this is what you get with that. And we're all about eliminating racism. Again, it goes on like that. It's disgusting.
Oh, my God.
And when you think about like Baltimore and you think about the history of Baltimore, I think about what was the guy's name? Freddie Gray, that was killed after he was arrested, which started those riots about 10 years ago.
And wasn't that in New York?
Oh, it was in Baltimore.
Oh,
and the police arrested him, and somehow along the way to the police station, he got killed. And they're saying that oh, well, this was all about racism back then. And it started a riot. And the riot happened. The mayor, remember, said, okay, we're just going to call the police back, let them just riot, let them cool off. They burned down the town. And then they said this was all about white supremacy and racism.
Good God.
But yet, the police officers were all black that arrested the guy. The mayor of the town is black. The police chief is black.
Yeah.
Most of the city council there
it's not
is almost 100% black. And they're like, people can't get, we can't do anything here, and it's all about oppression and blah, blah, blah. Yet they're tearing down their own city. You had the very first black Supreme Court justice, Thurgood Marshall, came right out of the ghettos of Baltimore and was able to raise himself up by the bootstraps. And here they're saying you can't. I'm just so tired of hearing.
Everyone is. It's not working. Everyone's failing with this. Just like what's her name from the Harvard president, the disgraced Harvard president.
Oh yeah, Christine Day.
Yes. Did you hear about Don Lemon's interview with Elon Musk?
I saw part of it. I couldn't believe it, man.
It was so bad. It was so bad. It was so funny. And Don Lemon, who got fired from CNN of all places, is still playing the same game. He said in an interview after that horrific Musk interview where Musk shut him down and said, I don't have to answer to you. And he said to somebody, Dave Smith did a little spot on this on his podcast, and he played the recording. Don Smith said to someone after about the interview, do you think it was because he was uncomfortable talking to a gay black man?
That's so crazy.
He went there, of course. Of course.
Don Lemon went there. I mean,
that's what I said. Don Lemon said that.
Yeah. Oh, it was Don Lemon.
Yeah. And if I'm interrupting your flow, go ahead. Put that. But I did think of something else I wanted to talk about. I forgot to put in my notes, and that is Candace Owens leaving the Daily Wire, having a dust. You didn't know this, having a dust up with Ben Shapiro. Oh, really? Yeah, so good. It was. I think it's speculated that the final nail in the coffin was when Candace tweeted, "Jesus Christ is King." And that flies in the face of the very raw nerve that is the Jewish man known as Ben Shapiro. Now, I've always liked Ben Shapiro because his rise to fame was, facts don't care about your feelings.
Right.
And he would, just tear everybody down with that. But when it came to October 7th, and God, I hope I got the date right.
Yeah, that's correct. That's when the attack happened.
Right. And so the Israel-Hamas thing is in the limelight, and everyone's choosing their sides and everything. And Ben Shapiro is just so staunchly pro-Israel. And I don't care how this morning, just before we got on the air, I saw a headlining article in the Daily Mail about this. The winner of a photography award was somebody that shot. It's a picture of a woman that was killed in the October 7th thing, and they were parading her around.
Oh yeah, yep.
And they won this award. Horrible, but as always, I see these things and I know that I'm supposed to get emotionally triggered and have a violent reaction. They don't care which way, just that I have this reaction. And Ben Shapiro has fallen for that himself. His identity has become so tied to the Jewish Israeli thing that I don't think that he's thinking straight at all, that he's really coming from a place of pure raw emotion, and it's clouding his judgment. And I just think that that's a lesson for all of us. If Ben Shapiro can fall into the same trap that he championed against, it can happen to any of us. And that's why I brought up the thing about this photograph, this award. And everything that you read is about, okay, now choose a side and dig your heels in and go to war. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's what they're trying to divide us. United we stand, divided we fall. You never hear that anymore. You don't.
You
Right.
really
Don't divide. Don't get divided.
Well, and it's
I don't want to see
interesting.
anyone die. Jewish,
No,
Israeli, Hamas, all of it. Stop
no,
killing
right,
each other.
right. That it's boy, this thing happening in Israel is really something else, and it goes back to what I hate to sound like a broken record, but I am in violent agreement with you that this is all about division and
Mhm.
trying to divide us. And even when I look at how this whole thing started in October of last year, that how is it that the Israelis had no idea that this ragtag bunch of people parachuting over or flying parachutes into their territory didn't know about? How could they not know that that was going to happen? Or even when it started happening, that they didn't respond to it? It just seems, again, much like the boat crashing into the Francis Scott Key Bridge. It's just something's not adding up here.
Right.
All these things put together, we talked about the border crisis, and then we found out about the Darien Pass thing that Brett Weinstein told us about. And it's like,
Oh,
okay, it just seems like there is a coordinated effort, a worldwide coordinated effort to bring down the status quo
yeah.
and change and eliminate national boundaries and
Yes.
have this one world government. And
Yes.
I mean, it is happening at light speed. And
It is.
as we are barreling into this election of this presidential election, man, it seems like there no holds bar, no holds
To take
barred
out the
is going to be
opposition.
yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
when you take a look at what's happening right now with Donald Trump,
Mhm.
and then now you look at what happened with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the fact that he picked that vice presidential pick, and
Mhm.
she is the widow of the founder of Google. Now the Democrats are so crazy about RFK Jr.
He could
that
take a lot of votes from the Democrats.
they have leveled all kinds of legal action
Oh
over the
yeah.
last, ever
God,
since his
I didn't
announcement
know that. I didn't know.
against him. Oh my God, it's coming at him like
This
crazy
is
because
horrifying.
because now it's a tremendous infusion of cash that's gone into his
Yeah.
campaign.
Yeah.
And now you can see where he's getting like 19% of the
Wow.
vote when in some of these swing states, and that's where the real problem is for the Biden administration. So they're going to wage
Like Joe's
lawfare.
not a big enough problem.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're going to wage lawfare against him. They've already started, much like they're doing with Trump right now,
That's
in order
unbelievable.
to
That's
so-called save
unbelievable.
democracy.
I,
Yeah,
we're going to save democracy by becoming authoritarian, tyrannical.
yeah.
It is
It's
amazing
two plus
that
two equals five.
yeah, it's amazing that that kind of stuff is still working. I was witnessing the circular logic about Trump and about well, I see the comments. Well, it's not our fault that he has 17 different indictments against him. I mean, what they're saying is the reason if you have 17 indictments against you, it means you're a really, really bad person. Now that really, it doesn't mean that there's election interference. That all of these indictments are from most are from many, many years ago. Things that
Yes.
maybe happened, maybe didn't happen. All these vague things, and yet they're. But in 2024, leading up to an election, is when they're all being prosecuted, huh? And there's nothing fishy about that.
Yeah.
It's
See,
obvious.
yeah, it's like there's too many of these coincidences to be
Yeah,
coincidences,
right.
and so we know that it's not. But to use the legal system to eliminate political opponents is exactly what we as Americans have stood against
How can this be
since
happening?
we became America.
How can this
And
be happening in this country with this government?
well, I think that there's a lot of factors to consider here. I've thought a lot about that, Barry, and I've thought about the fact that this isn't something that happened overnight. It's a gradual eating away of our rights. And we've talked through this before, but I see that really a little over 100 years ago, when our country changed dramatically, especially when you look at the introduction of income tax, which was constitutionally illegal until they put an amendment in there and also created the IRS. And then when they created the Federal Reserve Bank, this is a big, big windfall for the globalists at that time, because the Federal Reserve Bank is not a federal institution at all. It's a privately owned institution based out of London, England, run by the Rothschild family. So when we pay our taxes, they actually don't go to America. They go to London, and they are being held by the globalists. And there's some kind of there's a scam that's happening with that. But when you realize that they're the ones that are in control of the amount of money that comes into the United States, and they have control over printing money as well. And you start looking at the history of how the Great Depression started and how it was controlled by increasing interest rates, a la what's happening today with our inflation and increasing interest rates. You can see that we gave away control of our country a long time ago. And these things happened under progressive presidents, starting with Woodrow Wilson, but then extremely accelerated by FDR. These two put together the bureaucratic nation that we live in right now. Again, bureaucracies are not a part of our Constitution. They were added to our government, and they really act as a parasite on the government by the people, for the people, and of the people. That's been taken away by unaccountable, nameless faces that are running these bureaucracies with seemingly unlimited budgets and unlimited authority to make decisions that impact our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So once that happened, Barry, and we all got used to that, I think this is really the big problem, is that the way that we were educated was that, no, this is the way it's supposed to happen. And if you want to look it up, look in the Constitution, but I wouldn't do that because it's really boring and it's old.
Yeah.
And no one looks at it, no one studies it. And so therefore, it's easy for carnies like the federal government, it seems like they're all made of carnies now, to come in and be like, step right up. We got a daily double special going right here. One of your choice and one of my choice, and it's just, and it goes on. And the educational system has become
a joke.
And so the people that are coming out, our young people that are coming out of schools right now, have no clue. I talked to a very young person recently. This was the colleague I was talking to about the bridge going down. And he was saying that he believed that, it's high time that these states don't have different laws.
Oh my God.
These states don't have different taxes, that everything should be run by the federal government. We really shouldn't have state rights whatsoever, because it doesn't make sense and it's just too confusing. And I asked him a couple of questions. One of them was, hey, where did you grow up? Here in Arizona. You ever live outside Arizona? No, I've always lived here. And I said, well, let me give you a little bit of perspective on this, because I agree that it seems like it would be easier. But I just wonder, I lived in California, and I told them about how taxes went up through the roof. My streets were unsafe. Our property rights weren't being
protected. And you had the
protected.
choice to move.
And thank God I had another place to go here in this country.
Right.
And I am so happy to be here. And as I talked to him about that, he started to understand that there's a lived experience that he didn't have, that illuminated the need to have these kinds of choices.
Lived experience or not, he's also mal-educated.
Well, that's the problem. Exactly. Yes. My point was that's what had filled up his head, and no one had ever given him the counterpoint. It's like what the Bible says, is that everything a man says sounds right until you hear the other side of the story.
That's very true. I've used this analogy before. As I remember taking principles of argument philosophy in college, and I'd be reading, and I read way more of the book than I had to because I thought it was fascinating. So, like, page 1 would be the pro argument for capital punishment, and the deterrent that it is. And without it, you'd have all this crime through the roof and all of that. And I'm like, well, that is absolutely 100% right. And you turn the page and you see the counter argument against it. Oh, it's more, it costs more to kill an inmate than it does to house them the entire life, and all these other things. And after you're done reading it, you're like, well, that's exactly right too.
I mean,
you got to read. Well, so there's no matter how flat the pancake, it has two sides.
I agree, and it's so interesting. Like, for instance, some minimum wage in California, for fast food workers, they just moved that to $20 an hour. And as a result, what we're seeing in California is that I just saw it last night, where one of the what is it called, the hamburger company over there, the really In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah.
One of those, and they were talking about one of them in Oakland closed. First time they've closed any of these In-N-Out burgers ever.
Oh.
And they had to close it down because of high crime. And and then the article goes on to talk about how a whole bunch of these other places are closing down, and it has to do with crime, and it also has to do with the minimum wage that they raised. And so what's happened are two things. A whole bunch of people now aren't working at these fast food places, and the price of a burger has gone up through the roof.
Of course.
It's like, okay, the fact of the matter is when you hear about these things on the ballot, you always hear about the one side of the story. Well, you've got these disadvantaged people, black and brown people. They can't afford to feed their families on the measly $10 an hour or $15 an hour. And, we're going to raise minimum wage so that we can help these disadvantaged people. Well, the very people they say they're going to help with this are the people that get screwed by these kinds of things, because they never hear the other side of the story, which is economic logic. If it costs the owner 3 times as much to hire and maintain an employee, he's going to get rid of 2/3 of the people so that he can afford it again. And he's going to pass the higher wages on to the customer. He has to, in order to maintain it. And these restaurants are maintaining very small margins. And so this is it. And it's the other side of the story. One thing I love, Barry, is when it is voting time, we normally get these things in the mail that if you read through each of the ballot issues, it will give you the both sides of the story. But that means you got to do research.
Right.
We're kind of allergic to that here in America.
Yeah, we certainly are. I want to move on because it's getting a little bit later here in the show. And we didn't
talk about Puff Daddy either.
Puff Daddy, he stopped using that name in like the 90s. It's P. Diddy now.
Whatever.
I honestly don't have a lot of info on that because I don't find it all that interesting, other than the fact that when the FBI raids all your places, there's a lot to that story. It didn't happen by happenstance. Yeah, what a crushing.
I think it's more interesting the Puff Daddy to P. Diddy. Like, why did he do that?
Is it hard to believe that J-Lo was his girlfriend many
I know, isn't that
years
weird?
ago? It is.
I forgot all about that.
I did too until it was brought up. Right.
But here's one thing though with him, and here's what I do find interesting about this is that there's a lot of speculation about the ties that P. Diddy has to politics, and a lot of different celebrities that also were named in the Epstein.
There's a lot of similarities here.
And so some people are saying, I have no idea, but some people are saying this is the beginning, the tip of the iceberg.
I bet it is.
Of how this whole thing comes crashing down, and that all these people are about to get exposed.
Yeah, well, he's all tied to some kind of a sex ring. And when there's that, you're going to find some high-ranking political officials involved, I would say for sure.
I think what's going to be interesting,
if we
because
ever hear
you,
their names.
you hear the pundits on both sides of the aisle saying he was hanging out with Democrats, and then the other side saying he was hanging out with Republicans. So what's
God,
going to happen is people on both sides are
sure.
about this. It could be about to have a
Bet we won't hear their
reckoning.
names. Bet we
I
won't
hope
hear
it
their
does.
names.
I hope that's what happens. I mean, look, the man is innocent until proven guilty,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't look good. But that's all
Doesn't
we
look
can
good.
say right now.
Does not look good. All right. On other things, I definitely wanted to get to RFK Jr. here
Yeah,
because I just found it very eye-opening, interesting, and I really like this guy. I hope that he does have a very strong run for the presidency. I think that we would be, it's just my opinion. I think we'd be in good hands with him. I don't think he could be bought off. I don't think he could be persuaded against his will. I just don't. But there are two books that have come out. I think this is yeah. One was from RFK Jr. himself. He was talking about his mother. I do have this article on it in People Politics. And there's a quote, her love didn't always feel unconditional. And I've read all through all of this, and he talks about his past addictions after his father was assassinated. It sounds like his mother took it very hard and internalized it, I would say. She didn't sound like a very nice woman, to say the least. He turned to drugs. He had since he found some kind of a mentor that actually led him to drugs, and he did find his way out and became a what is that? But he became a environmental attorney, lawyer, and so all through this article in People, he says, here's a quote: "My mother, Ethel Kennedy, divided the world into friend and foe. Generally, she judged the latter by harsher standards, and yet sometimes discarded time-honored friendships for minor infractions. So she lost a lot of friends. It sounds like I faulted her for being mercurial and arbitrary." So that's about the harshest thing that he really said about her. He writes that his tumultuous relationship with his mother was his fault as much as hers. So a lot of self-accountability there. I always respect that. In a country where we lack self-accountability, it's almost a fad these days.
Yeah.
Now, in this article, this is by Jerry Oppenheimer, who's an author whose biographies include The Other Mrs. Kennedy, an intimate and revealing look at the hidden life of Ethel Kennedy, and RFK Jr. and the Dark Side of the Dream. He's a frequent contributor to the Daily Mail. Now, he paints her as just an absolutely awful human being. Let's see. I took some notes. I'm just going to read from that. Let's see. Ethel Kennedy is the force behind the family's decision to support Joe Biden. Now, this is really what got me, and I've heard this for several weeks now, that most of the Kennedy clan is anti RFK Jr. and pro Joe Biden. So because much of them are very infiltrated in the Democratic Party right now as a profession. And they just took a big family photo there at the White House as a middle, and that's what it says here, as a big middle finger to Bobby. I think this is awful. And she's always, they talk about when Bobby was only 13 years old, when his then newly widowed mother, Ethel, distraught over the assassination of her presidential candidate husband, Senior Robert F. Kennedy, suddenly began aiming her anger towards her son, her father's namesake. At various times in the wake of the June 68th assassination, Ethel, then 40, pushed young Bobby into painful thorns of a rose bush, beat him with a hairbrush, ordered him out of the Kennedy home, and constantly berated him and virtually disowned him by turning him over to a closeted homosexual. Absolutely scathing report on his mother. The fact that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., after all these years, does seem like such an incredibly positive and just a tough human being. I think is just once again just something really good to say about his character. if I had the vote today, I probably would vote for him. And I just look for to see how all of this unfolds here in the coming months, because news to me, you just told me that he's now being pursued legally by the Democratic Party, and that God only knows where that's going to go, because they have the media on their side. They just spin the story however they like, and a whole lot of people fall for it.
Well, they're very threatened by Kennedy right now, and especially because of his vice presidential pick. And I think it's interesting that the Bidens are using his family against him to go after him. The Bidens will stop at nothing to win, and they don't mind fighting dirty. But
Oh
I have
boy.
heard, as I look at the Kennedys, such dysfunction in that
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
Really, even when you take a look at you know, Bobby and John F. Kennedy's father, Joe, and you look at the family life there, it was not this perfect family. I mean, Joe was involved in running gin during Prohibition, and this is how the family actually made their fortune. And he used very hard tactics in politics to win his way. And this is culminating in him as a senator, really looking at a legacy that he wanted to build using his sons. And Joe Kennedy, his first son, was the one that he was grooming to become the president of the United States. And unfortunately, he was killed in World War II. And so John Kennedy was the second best. And so he put him up for that. But during these campaigns, Joe Kennedy was ruthless. Also, during this time, one of their daughters was having mental issues. And Joe was ruthless about this whole thing, put her into an infirmary and had her lobotomized.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so was a big family secret for some time. Shortly after the lobotomy happened, Joe had a stroke and was never the same person for the rest of his life, and he died in a terrible state. But there seems like, I mean, the family, if you really look at like the legacy of the family, it does seem like there's a darkness that has followed this family, leading to the assassination of the stroke of the father, the assassinations of John and Bobby,
Oh
the thing
yeah.
that happened with
Dark.
Chappaquiddick, with Ed Kennedy, the thing that happened at the Kennedy compound with one of their nephews. I mean, the list goes up. The thing that happened to John and how he went down, and all the weird myths that surround that whole thing. Man, I like RFK Jr.
I like him a lot.
I read his book, The Real Dr. Fauci, which
Oh,
highly recommend that to everyone. In fact, you need
everyone says that.
and understand what's happening, so you understand what's happening in healthcare. Would he make a great president? I don't know. I think it would be a lot better than Joe Biden.
I think he would be very much like Trump, where he would not get any cooperation and they would hate him. And I think it'd be exactly like Trump's
it might be.
presidential.
It might just be. I mean,
Yeah.
but
But you,
every time I hear him talk, and when he's given me such a lesson about things that are happening in Ukraine,
mhm,
and how the history of what's happening. This is not being told on the mainstream media. How
right.
BlackRock is involved with Ukraine, and how
Oh,
there's
I
been
got
a,
something for you.
well, let me just finish
Go
this
ahead.
and hold on to that thought.
Mm-hmm.
How a deal has been made with Ukraine for all this money that we've been given them. RFK Jr. has exposed that this is a loan, and that there's no way for them to pay back this
Right,
loan,
for sure.
and they'll use austerity measures in order to start the payment, which will keep the poor in Ukraine forever. But the other part is that they have to sell off their government assets, and one of the biggest ones is this breadbasket of Europe, agricultural land that we're going to give to several different companies, Monsanto being one of them. which is the companies, Cargill being another one. These companies are all BlackRock companies that will now take over that agricultural area that's been fought over for over 1,000 years in Europe, that this will suddenly belong to the globalists. And think about what we talked about with supply chain and food supply chain. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is talking about how this would give them a strategic advantage because, look, if you can't get food, you'll do anything to get it. And that's the control of the world right there. And I love that a presidential candidate is talking about this. I don't hear Trump talking about it, and I don't hear Joe Biden talking about it. And I thank God that somebody like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is talking about it. But doesn't it concern you that no one else, the two leaders, not talking about it?
Yeah, well, here's something else that no one talks about because no one seems to know. So I have one of my friends here is a very renowned doctor. I think I mentioned him. He's a pediatrician, specializes in pulmonary respiratory stuff. And he's second generation here. His family's from Ukraine. I want to say the Ukraine. So he's Ukrainian, and he's had this budding romance with a Ukrainian woman who is in the Ukraine. And I said the Ukraine. And
it's so hard not to say that.
It is. And of course, that it's very volatile. They actually were to go to meet in Miami and we're going to go to the Caribbean for a couple of weeks. But because of the things going down there, she actually could not leave the country. But here's the point is he told me, and I might get a couple things wrong here, but here's the gist of it. Something like in 2013, the United States and the major European countries like France and England, probably Germany, made a deal that Ukraine was the third largest nuclear power at that time. And if they were to disarm, we would sign this treaty, NATO-like treaty. And we did sign this, that we would protect them if they were ever invaded. And they dismantled their nuclear powers, and we did not honor this treaty. You know what happens? People change power. Different presidents come and go. And so they are invaded. And so this is a big, Ukrainians actually have a lot of disdain for the United States because of that. They all seem to know that, and none of us seem to know that. I
didn't even realize Ukraine was a nuclear
I didn't either. He says this is what he told me.
Russia was. I know Russia.
They were the third largest nuclear power in the world.
Oh, I did not know that.
I did not know any of that. So that puts a whole different look on everything that we know about the war in Ukraine now. But you know what? Let's do our research on that when we get off of here. And
wait, one last thing I'll say about Ukraine or the Ukraine is as I listened to the Tucker Carlson interview with Putin was talking about the history of Russia. Very interesting. One of the things he talked about was Ukraine in Russia means the outer fringe, or the fringe. And so it's Ukraine was never a country. It was a territory on the fringe, could be anywhere on the fringe. And so the Ukraine was actually the proper thing to say.
That's how I remember it.
Right. But then they named the country Fringe. And so now everyone still calls it the Ukraine because it's the fringe.
Thank you for clarifying. Because I kind of wondered why.
We're getting that from.
Right. I kind of wondered why and how.
Yeah. Why do we keep calling it that?
Right. And I have a hard time not saying that.
I got a couple of things. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I wanted to come over to this story here for a minute. I found it fascinating and curious.
Wow.
I have a lot of questions here. Conjoined twin Abby Hensel, and I'm surprised it's not twins, plural, but whatever. Abby Hensel of Abby and Brittany, that was their reality show like 10 years ago, privately married Josh Bowling. So I read about this, and these twins share, they have two different spinal columns. They have two different hearts. let me see where this, and
So,
they,
so that's the reason they said twin Barry is because only one of them married Josh.
this is what I like. My mind is so torn and put a knot here. Like, how does this work? This is my question. This is the kind of thing you and I would typically have a big conversation on the phone, that we would explore every option. And I wanted to do it on here because I find it fascinating, but we're going to have to try to be really politically correct. And like, how does one have a romance with this guy? How does that work?
Well,
And so,
I think that the one of them is like, you know how girls, they're always like, they always go in pairs, and the one is always watching out for the other one. And I'm like, this is like built in, like the sister can always be watching over, but look at them. They're cute.
uh-huh.
And they probably have great personalities.
Sure. And they're probably
But
really different too.
yeah, probably. But now one of them's married. So how I don't know how that
They want to
works.
have kids. They're separate except for the waist down. They share everything from the waist down. So think about sex.
So
They both enjoy the sex or not enjoy, they both feel the sex.
I yeah. I
They
don't
want to,
know where.
they want so they want to have kids.
Yeah.
And one controls the right arm, one controls the left arm separately.
Hmm.
There's just so many questions as to, I would, without getting all voyeuristic and being like, what do you say that when you rumors, gossip, without
Yeah.
going pure gossipy. I'm just curious as to how this romantically works.
I I don't know. I mean,
But good for
I went
them.
to the Guinness Book of World Records. I remember there was Siamese twin females who had married. There were in the thing. There were two men. They'd both gotten married, so somehow they figured out and worked it out. But
Sure.
I think that it takes a special man to
Sure.
be a part of that.
For
And
sure.
what they say is that for every individual out there, there's God has made a match for them. So
Mm-hmm.
it just like almost seems a little bit miraculous to me.
It definitely seems miraculous, and I wonder what their lifespan will be.
I wonder.
Because
But they look like
normally,
they're having fun in that picture right there. And I love to
yeah,
see the turn a lemon into a lemonade.
yeah, but okay. So one controls the right arm, the other controls the left arm. How do you ride a scooter?
Yeah, can you imagine? Like, no, I want to go this way. No, this way. That's probably very dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to think about that one for a while, but God bless them and everything. Here, I just wanted to say that this is just wild. So,
It's mind blowing, man.
and let
That's
me
my
ask you something. You brought up the term Siamese twins. What does that mean compared to them? Are they Siamese twins?
those are Siamese twins.
Okay. Because they never use that term. It says the sisters who are dicephalous conjoined twins were
Yeah.
born fused together at the torso and remain so as adults. They have separate spinal cords, brains, and hearts and other organs, but share those located below the waist.
Yeah.
That's just wild, man.
Maybe they changed the name, but it was Siamese twins.
You're probably right. I
Yeah.
just wonder how their body figures that out. Their hearts beat separate. They have separate hearts. They have, I guess, separate sets of lungs. I
Yeah,
mean,
it sounds like it.
how does their body figure that out?
I
Hey,
know
God
it's
bless them,
really
man.
something.
Seriously,
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
bless them. Um,
I don't know.
I saw
Crazy.
one more thing when I was going to share the screen. I want to share this with you if I could find it. I um, Okay, I don't see it myself, but apparently you are on the web page that I created.
Maximize your workforce.
There you go. See that art? I generated that on AI Chat 4.0, and it was not easy. It took me hours to arrive at that. But after I did arrive at exactly what I wanted, I think it took this brand to an entirely new level. And the concept behind it is really capturing the blue collar pride. I come from a blue collar family. This is my blue collar clan. We know this. Like you do have the blue collar guys that drink and smoke too much and just want to go out and party, right? But most blue collar people take an extreme amount of pride in their profession. So whether it's electrician, a plumber, uh, heating and cooling guy, whatever it may be. And these guys that do take a lot of pride in being the best at what they do are extremely brilliant. And so we're trying to capture that, the inspiration of these kind of people. And I think that artwork really does. And just wanted to share it because this is where,
beautiful, man. Good
thank
work.
you. This is where I'm at today. When I'm not doing that, I'm improving the SEO of my lawyer client's website using AI as well to rewrite his service pages, research the competition, and create more keyword friendly stuff. In other words, I'm using AI every day. I use premium chat.
Right. Wow.
My life changed in 2024.
Hey, I got just one thing here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw this article this morning. Government report reveals 236 billion worth of improper payments made last year.
To who?
236
from the government, from our government, our taxpayers.
Yeah, 230 billion. Okay, the Government Accountability Office report on improper payments by the federal government released on Tuesday showed $236 billion worth of errors made by federal agencies last year. Improper payments are defined as those that should not have been made or were made in the incorrect amount. The GAO's findings
that's fraud.
They're an underestimate since not all federal agencies provided information on improper payments.
That's fraud.
Improper payments have increased over time, Barry.
Oh, hell yeah.
In 2003, there were 35 billion in improper payments. And the number first broke 100 billion in 2009 and increased each year from 2017 to 21, rising from 141 billion to the peak of 281 billion. It has declined in the past. Hold on, it's declined in the past 2 years, but remains much higher than it was before the COVID epidemic.
Do they theorize as to where that's coming from? Because my guess for sure is that it's contracts going out to private companies that are borderline fraudulent.
Well, that I haven't gotten that far into the article, but because I just got this morning, but I can tell you that during COVID, we saw amazing amounts of fraud that was happening with the free money giveaways that they had going.
Yes, we sure did.
Here's the thing that I thought about was is that this is supposed to be government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And while we have the IRS threatening to audit us all the time, isn't it high time that we audit the government?
Dude, so overdue, but they're supposed to be auditing each other, which is why we have the separations of powers.
You're right about that. But when you take a look at 236 billion in 1 year, and I mean, how much have we given to Ukraine? I don't think it equals 236.
I think it equals 100 billion total.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is that we're not. I mean, we're waging this tremendous war in Ukraine, and yet we're bleeding just, because
everywhere.
We're not even paying attention. We're bleeding tons more than that.
If the United States was a person, and to personify that, we would have bullet holes everywhere, blood squirting out of us.
I mean, right? Exactly. And so this is, it's followed by an article here. Chicago's Brandon Johnson refuses to say where all $300 million meant for illegal care has gone. And this seems to be an epidemic of problem that's happening with our state, local, and federal governments here.
And all three, through all three branches of government, which goes all the way back to the beginning of this podcast. When I was saying, like, how all this election interference stuff, all these charges being pressed against Trump, and all the right in your face election interference by our government using taxpayer dollars. How is this possible in the United States of America?
I mean, seriously. And it's like, why aren't Why is it that you and I know that this is wrong, but the general public doesn't get it?
I
That
think
doesn't make
I
sense.
think Merle, I disagree. I think 3/4 of the nation knows this. You got I think about 25% of our people are rather radicalized.
I think you might be right about that.
And
I think that
so,
percentage is pretty close.
and the progressives, God, I hate to use that term, because they don't
But
deserve that term whatsoever.
it's real.
The far leftists are so radicalized and they're so loud. I think Lisa and I just had this conversation. They're so loud that that's all you hear. And they're so, I hate to say this too, they're so good at silencing everybody else with their claims of bigotry, racism, and victimhood, and oppressive, you're the oppressor, that's why this has been able to go on.
You're exactly right, Barry. Case in point, NBC fired Ronna McDaniels after one day this week. She was the head of the Republican National Committee, and they hired her
I
to have a
heard that.
counterpoint.
Yes.
Um, and the whole
It
staff of
lasted hours.
NBC
Yeah.
and MSNBC, they rebelled against the management of NBC, and management capitulated, and
Yeah.
they fired Ronna immediately. Rona didn't even know that she had been fired until she heard it on the news.
I can't believe
They,
she would accept that job. I'm sure it was a lot of money, but to go in there and
I mean, that would be a tough gig, right? But I
oh, it would
mean,
suck.
but okay, so Rona is the niece of Mitt Romney. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, most people. I just found out about it recently, and Mitt
Mm.
Romney doesn't seem to be a real conservative to me at all.
Mm.
Yeah,
He's got the
and
religious part down.
well, yeah, but I guess, but the fact is that he stands for very, very progressive principles.
Mm.
And so that's been the problem with Rona. And that's
Mm.
why she got fired from the RNC.
That's why she got hired in the first place, as she seemed to be a friendly Republican.
Yes, but
Yeah.
after one day on the job, she didn't last. But to your point, Barry, they can't have a counterpoint. They can only have one side.
Mm.
And it goes back to what it says in the Bible, is that everything a person says sounds right until they hear the other side. So this
All right.
is the definition of propaganda.
There you go. Boy, that's very, very well said. It's just eye-opening and disgusting how far gone we are. I don't know if we could ever save this country.
Well, I think it's going to take a miracle in order to save the country. And with that, it is Good Friday today. Today is the day that Jesus Christ sacrificed on the cross. He allowed that to happen to himself. And
Hopefully
I
he
just
comes
wanted to,
back on Sunday.
I just want to say this, that really, this is the greatest love story ever told. And that's what this is about. When we look at love stories, the typical damsel in distress is, kind of the classic love story where the hero, against all odds, against all obstacles, fights in order to save that damsel in distress, risks his life in order to make it happen. And in the end, he gets the girl, and they fall in love, and they live happily ever after. And really, this is that story. And
I
really,
hope.
we take a look at what Christ did on the cross, according to what he was announced to do, is this is the reconciliation between God and man. And that this is what needed to happen in order for God to be okay with man, and man okay with God. Because left in the state that we were in, our only option was to be separated from God forever, with an enemy that wants to devour us, who is Satan. And so when I think about the fact that, this kind of love is the absolute self-sacrificing love. Here's a man that lived a perfect life, completely innocent, allowing himself to be treated like this in our place. And I just think about, like, imagine if you had this life prison sentence, and just before you go to jail for the rest of your life, you can never see your loved ones again. Somebody steps in and volunteers to take your place. That's what happened right here. And because he's God, it didn't mean that, oh, it was easy. No, He's fully man at the same time. He paid the pain. He paid the price. I can't even imagine, when we think about crucifixion, the pain of that alone is unbelievable. I listened to a medical report on what happens, and basically, it's not the nails that kill you; it's the hanging on that cross actually slowly suffocates you for a long period of time, and they got that little thing on there so you can hold yourself up, and that's so you can get air back into your lungs. So you're constantly having to lift yourself up to get
that's
air
awful.
out. But you've got those nails inside of your joints, and it's right where the funny bone thing is. It's where it goes into each of your joints. So every time you push up, it's that funny bone nerve that's been crushed that you're pressing against. You're losing all kinds of your water. You're being
This is a great way to end the podcast there.
Cramps are happening. This is because of love. Who would do that? What kind of person would volunteer to do that for somebody else? This is the kind of love that I believe formed this country. When you take a look at what the founding fathers said at the end of the Declaration of Independence, where they pledged their life, their fortune, and their sacred honor to each other to fight the greatest military force that had ever existed in human history and had been reigning for over 1,000 years. That's that kind of love. That's what our country needs to bring back. And
if
I think
possible
here, Barry, the thing that you and I have between us, this brotherly love that we have had for many, many years, that's the thing that's going to save America. That's what this country into being in the first place.
Young people like my tenants that I talked about at the beginning of the podcast give me hope. Vivek Ramaswamy is a young person, so freaking intelligent and unshakable in character. RFK Jr., I feel the same way about. Just super strong character. There are a lot of examples of that. We need to prop these people up and let them prop us up. We need the inspiration. Remember that I think in the last podcast, I quoted a statistic that I heard on a Jordan Peterson's podcast that we are 75% more likely to stay silent today, self-censored, than we were in the 50s. Think about that.
Yeah.
I think this is the year. Yeah. I think this is the year 2024 where we're seeing the awakening of the woke, awakening from woke. We're seeing the failures of DEI. We're awakening from that, and we need to start getting vocal. We need to get more and more vocal so that the leaders in us can rise and so that common people can feel safe expressing what they truly feel, even when they're sitting at a table hearing a bunch of stuff that they know is wrong, and policies and procedures that are being laid out at their place of work. And hell, I could tell you a networking group. I'm in a quick story. I'm in a chamber of commerce, and I went to a committee event where we discussed what can we do better with this chamber. And well, I could tell you, I've been in there 1 year, and more than 75% of the correspondence that I get from this chamber are for a woman's group. They meet all the time. I'm not sure why I'm subsidizing that, because I don't get much and somebody brought it in. So we're in this group and talking about it, and a man across the table from me brought it up but he said it in a very good way. He said, well, how about if we have we create a men's group? And he goes, it doesn't have to be a men's group, but a constructive group. But he spoke to that without without saying it the way I just said it, because what? You're going to get shot down. What do you got against women? That's the first thing you're going to hear. Right?
Right.
And so anyways, my point is we do have to begin speaking up against these rather obvious things.
I agree, Barry. And I think what we've learned on the opposite side is that it doesn't take the majority of the population to make changes. It actually only 10%. Takes a fraction of the population to make changes. You say 10%.
That's my guess.
Right about that. I think between 10 and 20%, somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
And we put our heads together, and we can change not only this country, but the world. Case in point, go back to the Revolutionary War. A lot of people believe that everyone in America or in the colonies was for the Revolutionary War, and it wasn't that way. It was actually led by some mostly very young people that had become, as they say, enlightened to what liberty and freedom actually is. And they were the ones that led the charge against all odds. It wasn't just them fighting the British, but also the mentality of many of the colonists that were just willing to just go along to get along. And we have a lot of that going on here. In fact, that's what the problem is. But the hope is that I have that more and more people will be enlightened like you and I are, and they can see that love thy neighbor is really, and the golden rule are things that we can use to advance our way of life and continue that for our posterity. I'd like for my kids to live in a secure world, much the way that I grew up.
Agreed. I think with that, I think we should get on with our Friday and go into a beautiful Easter weekend. Happy Easter, buddy.
Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter to you. This was great. And hey, everybody, why don't you let's go
catch
ahead and
us
tell them how they can get
at over50startingover.com. Sign up the email list there. Get everything into your email box as it happens. Go to YouTube, Over 50 Starting Over. Subscribe, share. Most importantly, go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe there, and give us a 5-star rating, please. 5 Apple rating, please. All right, guys, have a good weekend. Love you more.
Love you too.